Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Hop Light channel. I am your host, Hop, yet again here with you for another installation for this video you clicked on, Samurai Lit, Taira Shigesuke Part 1. Yeah, Taira. Anyway, this guy. We're going to go over Taira Shigesuke for this series now. I appreciate everyone coming back to go on this journey with me through the samurai literature series. It's been a long one, but we're nearing the light at the end of the tunnel. I think after Shigesuke, we'll move on to Musashi, and then I will wrap it up with a conclusion video, and that'll be the end. But we're almost there. This is the series for Shigesuke, and I will, at the end of this video, read from some source material, as we always do. But we left off the last part of this series, and we dedicated 3 parts to Yamamoto Tsunetomo. And as we know from Tsunetomo, we were given the work of Hagakure. And this was written during the time of the Tokugawa shogunate, during an era of relative peace. There was peace in the land. There weren't major conflicts. There weren't invasions or incursions into Japan. It was a period of relative calm. And ironically enough, through this calm, there was clarity of mind in the world of Bushido, which probably led to the creation of so many different works of samurai literature. There was time to become literate. There was time to reflect. There was time to expound upon the virtues of Bushido off the battlefield and more in a classroom or a teaching setting. And we move now for another example of those teachings. And we look to this individual right here, Taira Shigesuke, and a little bio about him. So his full name was Daidoji Yuzan Shigesuke. And try saying that 3 times fast. He was born in 1639 AD in Fushimi, Yamashiro Prefect in Japan. This is his modern-day Kyoto. And he died in 1730, presumably somewhere in Japan, perhaps Edo. I couldn't really find the location of his death, although they did have the date. I believe it was December 11th, but they didn't really say the place, which I thought was interesting. Anyhow, that's impressive. This guy, he made it past 90. And for this day and age to live past 80 anywhere in the world was pretty incredible. To make it to 90, I mean, you must have been one of a handful of people. But yeah, he lived a good long life. And he was born in the same era as Tsunetomo. So yeah, he was one of Tsunetomo's contemporary minds, although they may not have known each other while they were walking the earth. Anyway, who was he? Well, we know he was a samurai and a military strategist during the Edo period. And he came from a pretty prestigious line of samurai. His family had a lineage that went very deep into Japan feudal military tradition. And we find that his father and grandfathers, well, rather his grandfather and great-grandfather, served under the Hojo clan. And I thought this was kind of funny and interesting. This is the crest of the Hojo clan. And if you're an American kid who grew up in the 80s, like I did in the 90s, and the 90s, not just the 80s, you remember there was a Nintendo game, and Nintendo obviously is a Japanese video game developer. The game was The Legend of Zelda. And this was one of the symbols in the game, and it was called the Triforce. So the game centers around this Triforce and your search for it. And it's funny, as an American kid, we just associate this with the Triforce, but it goes way further back to the Hojo clan. And I guess the developers in Japan were coming up with this game and wanted to choose some symbology that was meaningful to them, and that would perhaps be of use in a video game, and they used the Triforce. But in the Hojo clan, this represented the 3 dragon scales, and these are the 3 dragon scales combined into one triangle. Yeah, pretty cool. Anyway, if you're not a video game fan, you can look it up. But yeah, Legend of Zelda. So about Shigesuke, he studied Bushido and other martial arts under three teachers, Kagenori, Ujinaga, and Soko. And I won't go into these three gentlemen, but they were they were well renowned in their day and age as instructors in Bushido and the arts of war. So in their time, they were considered some of the best teachers of the arts of war for a samurai to have. So Shigesuke had what you would call a well-rounded education in Bushido. So we skip forward and we find that he was actually interested in writing down his own musings and lessons on Bushido itself. And we're going to read from this book in a moment here, Code of the Samurai. He wrote this work, the Budo-Shoshinshu. Try saying that 3 times fast. Budo-Shoshinshu. And this translates roughly to the warrior's way for beginners. So it was kind of like a starter manual for the samurai or the bushi who had just picked up Bushido and was looking, perhaps for some insight into the teachings and the virtues, and wanted to learn more about what this way of the warrior had in store for them if they continued on the path and made it their career, their life's calling. It wasn't published, though, until about 1834. So it's quite impressive that, he died in 1730, and his work was not officially published into a book that you could actually take with you and read. It survived in teachings, perhaps from teacher to student, and in manuscripts. So the manuscripts were collected and compiled eventually, and were put into one work, the Budo or Bushido Shoshinshu. See, I messed it up, and eventually saw print in 1834. So yeah, this individual, Daidoji Yuzan Shigesuke, another great mind in the samurai literature series. It wouldn't be complete without him. So let's read a few passages from the Bushido Shoshinshu and discuss them. And as always, I will provide the read along so you can follow. This is the book right here. This is Code of the Samurai, a modern translation of Bushido Shoshinshu of Taira Shigesuke. And Thomas Cleary was the translator for this. And it's a very quick read, like all the other books. I want to say it's barely 120 pages. So if you're interested in The Life-Giving Sword, The Unfettered Mind, Hagakure, these are all works that if you took them together would be less than 1,000 pages. So in any event, we'll read from some passages here, and I will get us started. And we jump to page 4. Chapter 1. And Shigesuke said, When you always keep death in mind, when you speak and when you reply to what others say, you understand the weight and significance of every word as a warrior by profession, so you do not engage in futile arguments. As a matter of course, you do not go to dubious places, even if people invite you, so there is no way for you to get into unexpected predicaments. People of all social classes, high and low, constantly overeat, drink too much, and indulge in their desires to an unhealthy degree, all because of forgetting about death. This puts a strain on their internal organs, so they may die remarkably young, or else become sickly or invalid. When you always keep death in mind, even if you are young and healthy, you already know how to take care of yourself. You moderate food and drink, avoid sexual addiction, and behave prudently. As a result, you are physically sound. Because you are healthy, you will live a long time. Okay. So, yeah. That's a very good couple paragraphs on self-help. So, again, we have to read this as though this is Shigesuke talking to the younger Bushi, the samurai who is the beginner, and he's speaking to a younger audience most likely, and he's telling them, as Tsunetomo did, you cannot forget as a samurai that death follows you everywhere, and you must never permit yourself to lead a life where death is not a constant concern. A concern is that no matter what you do, you must always be ready to lay your life down on the line to lay your life down for your emperor, your daimyo, your shogun, your lord and your friends, your samurai, because this is your calling. This is what you are meant to do. You are meant to lead a virtuous life with Bushido, and if the time calls for it, to die for it. And to lead a life, even casually, where you do not take death seriously as one of the main motivations for your Bushido, you are not being a proper samurai. You are not in keeping with the way. And he mentions that you should always avoid dubious places and getting into futile arguments. This is especially good for younger samurai because oftentimes, because you are younger and seeking to make a name for yourself, you will let your emotions and your testosterone get the better of you, and you will try to prove yourself in futile arguments. This is careless. This is how you throw your life away foolishly. Just the same as going to places you are invited to that may be of dubious nature. Don't go to these places and put yourself in predicaments. Don't overeat like people do. Don't overdrink. Don't give yourself over to lust and sexual desire. Use your body as an instrument of a bushi, and do not throw it away carelessly like the people who treat death as though something that will come later, something that other people have to go through. But as long as I am enjoying my time here, well, it's time well spent. Don't think like this. Be of sound mind, keep your body sound, and you will be on the correct path. Yeah, I think we could say he was right. Next, we jump to the chapter on education. This is page 7. And Shigesuke wrote, "There is no legitimate reason for illiteracy among warriors in an era of peace. Children are not to blame for this. It is only due to the negligence and irresponsibility of the parents. Ultimately, it is because they do not know the way to love their children." Okay, yeah. This one, this is almost like a lesson he is leaving for parents, perhaps younger parents of infant children. That as a samurai, when you have time to engage in peaceful activities such as reading, writing, the kanji calligraphy, you should not neglect this time and not do so. In times of war, perhaps you are more dedicated to your katana or to learning self-defense with the art of no sword, empty-handed, things of that nature that are survival activities. But if you have the time in times of peace to be literate, there is no excuse if you don't take advantage of this. And you can see that the people who love their children will also insist upon them becoming literate. And this is the proper demonstration of love, that to give your child knowledge or to enable them to seek out knowledge on their own by giving them the gift of literacy, this demonstrates a deep affection and love, because this is a gift that they will carry with them throughout their whole life. It is not just food or water or shelter, something that is needed in the here and now, but reading knowledge is something that is a gift that they can take advantage of every day. Right. Okay. Next page. We jump to page 10. And Shigesuke said, "There is no such thing as someone who is disrespectful to his parents, yet faithful to his employer. If someone is so immature as to be remiss in familiar care for his parents, who are the origin of his own body, there is no way he can be moved by the kindness of an employer, who is not his flesh and blood, to be completely loyal." Yeah, I think that's accurate. If you have someone who is disrespectful to their parents or neglects them, doesn't check in on them, doesn't make sure that they are taking care of themselves or being cared for or in good health, how can you trust this person to do the same for you if you're his daimyo, if you are his employer, his lord? If you are not his flesh and blood, he does not care for his parents, you already know this. What kind of loyalty do you think he'll show to you? Someone who is perhaps as old as his parents, or even younger. But all the same, someone who neglects their own flesh and blood cannot be trusted by a friend, by an employer, because they don't even have the basic loyalty to the people who gave them life in the first place. And he's telling the younger samurai, Shigesuke, saying to the younger samurai, you must show this care for your parents, because your parents are the next closest ancestors you have to those who are no longer with us. And as someone in your lineage of ancestry, you must honor your ancestors, you must honor your parents, you must show them care, so that other people can know that you at least have this basic care for flesh and blood, and you could perhaps demonstrate the same for someone who is perhaps your brother in arms or your daimyo who may rely on you later for security or for attack if he calls upon you to do so. Yeah. Next, we turn to page 14. And this is the last reading. Shigesuke wrote, in warrior houses, even the underlings and squires always wear a short sword, as a rule. How much more so is it imperative for full-fledged knights to see to it that they are never without swords at their sides, even for a moment. For this reason, really serious warriors even wear an edgeless sword or a wooden sword to the bath. A warrior who wears two swords at his side but does not put the spirit of combat into his heart is nothing but a peasant or a merchant wearing the skin of a warrior. Okay. So, yeah, he is telling the younger samurai, the beginner here, the bushi beginner, that even the underlings, even those who are considered squires and not full-fledged knights and not complete samurai, even they walk around with at least a short sword at their side. Because if you are a bushi, if you are a samurai, and as we mentioned, you always must consider your life at the knife's edge of death, you must carry your weapon with you, because what good are you as a knight, as a samurai, or even a squire if you don't have the weapon you train with to defend yourself? And he says that even a decent samurai who considers himself serious about his Bushido will go to the bath, if nothing else, with a wooden short sword. Now, I think he's trying to be maybe a little bit, I would say, not exaggerating, but he's trying to emphasize the point that if you see a man in the bath and he has a wooden sword with him, you can tell that he's for real, because he never even wants to believe as though he is one moment without some sort of self-defense, without some sort of implement that he can be useful as a samurai. And in the last part, he says, a warrior who wears two swords at his side but does not put the spirit of combat in his heart is nothing more than a pretender. He's a peasant who walks around with the skin of a warrior. So if you do carry these weapons, you must treat them with respect. You must see to it that you never regard your weapons as something to intimidate or as something to show accomplishment or status. They are weapons and they're there for a purpose. If you have to draw this weapon, you must do so with the intent to kill someone if they are a threat that requires lethal force. But someone who walks around with these weapons merely for show or merely to intimidate is a peasant walking around with the skin of a warrior. And if someone were to test him to find out if he was real about carrying these weapons, and if these weapons were anything other than mere decorations, well, he could be in for a rude awakening. So never carry these weapons openly, even if you carry one or two, as he said, if you have no intent to use them. Put them away if you have no intent to use them. But if you carry them, understand that by carrying them, you must have the spirit within you to draw them at any moment, because, again, the first passage, your life as a bushi, as a samurai walking the warrior's way, must be done knowing that you walk that knife's edge of life and death. Okay. All right. That will conclude part one for Taira Shigesuke. Interesting stuff. Again, like Tsunetomo, these are very concise and readable passages. There isn't a lot of nuance in them. They are good lessons, however, and I don't believe until we get to Musashi, we will have anything that could potentially be considered Buddhist philosophy or Taoism, something that really requires more discussion to flesh out. The Code of the Samurai and Hagakure, the Handbook of the Samurai, very good, very digestible, and I thought it would be a good break in the action between jumping into the 5 rings. But yep, it definitely should be in your library if you are a fan of the samurai literature. I definitely William Scott Wilson does a translation as well, but this one I have by Cleary is also quite good. They're both excellent. So anyway, thank you for stopping by and tuning in for part 1 of Shigesuke. We will continue with part 2, and I will talk more about the man himself, and we will of course do more readings at the end. But appreciate your attention for this one. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take it easy.